The Finnish parliament is expected to endorse the decision in the coming days.
We have reached today an important decision in good cooperation between the government and the President of the Republic. We hope that the Parliament will confirm the decision to apply for NATO membership during the coming days. It will be based on a strong mandate. With the President of the Republic, we have been in close contact with governments of NATO member states and NATO itself. I wish to thank the support we have received so far.
For decades, Finland, which shares a 1,300-kilometer border with Russia, has been non-aligned. But Russia's invasion of Ukraine has changed that. This would be NATO's 9th expansion, and all 30 members need to agree. Alexander Stubb served as Finland's prime minister from 2014 to 2015. I spoke to him earlier about his efforts to push for this expansion and what it means to him now. Mr. Stubb, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
You've been advocating for Finland to join NATO for some time. How do you feel about the fact that it could actually happen now?
No, I feel quite good about it. I mean, I've been advocating Finnish NATO membership for the better part of 30 years. So that's, pretty much after the Cold War. It's a strange way to happen. I mean, basically, you could say that this is Putin's NATO enlargement. I don't think it would have happened was it not for Putin's attack on Ukraine on the 24th of February. So I guess I should thank him.
Well, you actually have written that in the Financial Times as well, that it's Putin's enlargement. I wonder how you think Putin will react to achieving ostensibly the opposite of what this was about.
Well, I think he achieved pretty much the opposite on everything, and that's what happens when you sort of mix up arrogance with tactics and strategy. He wanted to Russify Ukraine, they're becoming European. He wanted to split the European Union, never seen it more united. He wanted to split NATO. Well, we're getting NATO enlargement, the NATO back with a purpose. And he wanted to split the transatlantic partnership. And now the US and Canada are back with Europe. So I think he got it wrong pretty much on all accounts.
What does NATO stand to gain from having Finland as an ally, as a partner? And what does Finland stand to gain?
Well, it's a win-win, I think, for all parties involved, actually including Sweden. Because NATO is getting 900 reserves, 280 men and women that can be mobilized within days. They're getting 62 F-18s, soon 64 F-35s, and a very strong artillery. On top of that, you have a Sweden, which is good in the air and on the sea. So what are they gaining? They're gaining more security in the Baltic Sea region, meaning the Baltic states and the Nordic states, Poland and Germany. And they are gaining a lot for the alliance itself. So I think it's win-win all around.
The opinion polls in Finland have shifted pretty dramatically on this issue. Do you attribute that solely to the invasion here? And why has this evolution happened in Finland?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was in a steadfast majority in the sense that for many years, ever since the Cold War, you could say that the opinion polls were 50% against, 20 in favor. But then overnight they switched to 50 in favor, 20 against, then to 62 in favor. And the latest opinion poll we saw was 76% in favor and only 12 against. And on top of that, now that the Prime Minister and President have come out in favor of NATO membership, I predict that if there's an opinion poll next week, it's going to be over 80%.
Wow.
What is the reason? The reason is simple, and that is the attack on Ukraine and the feeling that if Putin can slaughter his brothers and sisters, Slavic brothers and sisters in Ukraine, he can do it elsewhere as well.
You've said that you've been advocating for this for 30 years. Why did you feel it was needed through all that time, given that there didn't seem to be a direct or imminent threat?
Well, I want to say that it's probably because of the summer that I spent in Canada when I was 13 years old, and because I'm a huge hockey fan, wish all the best to, Edmonton, Calgary, and Toronto in the playoffs. But the truth is that I've always been a strong advocate of the transatlantic alliance. And I felt that it's the democratic alliance where Finland naturally belongs. And I've always also advocated this balance of idealism and realism in our security policy, which means that on one side we cooperate with Russia, but on the other side we get all the security that we possibly can. So I think it would have been the natural political value-based military alliance where we should have gone into right after the Cold War.
Does it, obviously between Finland and Sweden, does it change the idea that there are Scandinavian countries that have been traditionally more neutral, sort of viewed as the place where you go to have a diplomatic conversation as opposed to the place that becomes part of the defense? What do you think about that?
Well, it's more today the place where they play the World Championships in ice hockey again this week in Finland. But I think, it's good news for the Nordic countries in general. I was in Norway earlier this week and met up with the Prime Minister of Norway, who's my old colleague from the times that I was foreign minister. And there was very much this sentiment that thanks guys for joining, because of course the other Nordic states, you see Iceland, Denmark and Norway, they're founding states with Canada and the US in 1949. Yeah. So this was sort of long coming. And the fact that, Finland was neutral during the Cold War, we were that because of necessity, not because we wanted. So we dropped that doctrine immediately. And we've always had a strong military. So now we sort of give a buffer, I think, to the other Nordic states as well with our 1,340 kilometer border with Russia.
You've talked a little bit about Putin's reaction, the Kremlin's reaction to this idea from the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, was this cannot fail to arouse our regret and is a reason for corresponding symmetrical responses on our side. What do you make of that response from Russia?
Pretty much the same response that the Soviet Union gave when Norway joined in 1949. So this is quite typical saber rattling and, trying to sort of scare Finns. What actually happens in this case is that opinion polls in favor of NATO membership just go up. It's a reaction that we expected. And at the same time, I'll be very honest with you, I think the reaction from Russia has actually been quite moderate, quite calm. And in that sense, I'm surprised that there hasn't been tougher language.
Why do you think that is?
It's hard to say. I think Russians actually trust Finns. They know that the profile that Finland and then Sweden are going to have in NATO is going to be constructive. And our president, Sauli Niinistö, has put it quite well. He says that, our NATO membership is not against anyone, it's for us. And this also indicates that for us, foreign and security policy is not a zero-sum game. So if we gain something, Russia loses. We think this is just good for the overall balance of security in the region. Russia knows that we're not going to attack them.
What do you make of Turkey's President Erdogan saying that he's not favorable towards Finland and Sweden joining NATO? And of course, it has to be a unanimous decision by the alliance. What do you make of that?
Well, it's hard to say. First of all, I haven't verified that yet, nor have I asked my sources what exactly has he said. But let's start from the assumption that he has said that he's against. There could be an element of perhaps exchange of something, whether it's in NATO or elsewhere, I don't know. But as a starting point, I find it very difficult to believe that the president would block Finnish and Swedish NATO membership. The reason is very simple. We've always been strong advocates of Turkish membership in the EU. I remember when I was a young civil servant in December 1999 in Helsinki, we were, during our presidency, the country that opened the door for Turkish EU accession negotiations. So I don't think the payback then would be the opposite when we join NATO.
Let me end just by asking you where you think this war is going. Obviously, U.S. intelligence seems to believe that this is a long war. It's certainly longer than most people expected already. How do you see this playing out and ending?
Well, at this stage, it's probably 78 days longer than many expected because they believed it to be 1 or 2 days. Yeah. You see, the Finnish Winter War, which is sort of similar in terms of ratios, was 105 days. Now, obviously, you can't make an exact comparison, but it does seem to me that we're looking at long-term warfare here. And I really don't have a clear answer of what the end state could be.
Okay. Alexander Stubb, so nice of you to make the time, sir. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks.
As you just heard, it's obviously unclear how long this war could last, and so